I'm going to talk about recognizing patterns. Okay, this is a property near my house. Okay, and a friend of mine moved in there recently. It's got 336 units. It's the Sky House in Houston, and it's very interesting. I said to my friend, who's a single doctor who moved from out of town, and I said, "What's it like there? Who's there?" You know, and he said, you wouldn't believe it. It's the most diverse group. You know, you've got empty nesters, you've got retirees who don't want to cut the yard anymore, you've got, you know, yuppies, you've got some kids who are going to Rice Business School, you know, you've got some people from Latin America coming to shop at the Galleria. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's the most diverse group of people that you could imagine in there. And I said, well, that's really interesting, and it got me thinking, you know, all these individuals, these very different kinds of people, they must have very different kinds of apartments that they live in. But of course the answer is no. You know, there's studios, there's 1 bedrooms, and there's 2 bedrooms. You know, there's basically, give or take, 3 types of apartments there, maybe 6 floor plans that they're using. And everybody with all their individuality and personal problems and challenges and accomplishments and relationships and jobs and histories are living in, like, basically the exact same 6 units. That's interesting to me, okay? Now, where can we go with that? Well, here's a bunch of books. Okay, let's assume for the sake of the conversation that these are fiction, right? But we've got science fiction, we've got historical fiction, we've got current stuff, we've got comedy, we've got, you know, books that were written hundreds of years ago. And they're all there on the bookshelf, and you would think, well, this is a very, very, very different collection of books. Anyone know who this is? It's hard to tell from behind. Kurt Vonnegut, may he rest in peace. One of our national treasure American authors. He put his finger on the pulse. And this was a presentation he did where he talked about the fact that all stories have only 6 shapes. Okay? And this was back in, like, the 70s that he was doing this. It's really an interesting YouTube video. And he kind of said, and someone cleaned it up into a little infographic, like, all these stories have the same shapes. Doesn't matter, Cinderella, you know, Adam and Eve, you know, Eat, Pray, Love, whatever, same shape of the story. And he mused that one day a computer would be able to do this. And sure enough, you know, some guys last year took 2,000 books. They indexed each word for whether it was, like, happy, sad, or neutral. And then they fed the books into the computer, and they came out with 6 shapes of stories, just like Vonnegut predicted. Okay? So it's interesting, you know, do we really care that it's Cinderella or the New Testament? You know, I mean, we do, but in some ways we have to understand it's the same story, it's the same thing. Okay? So how does that connect to business? Here's the S&P 500, right? A very different, diverse set of businesses. Okay? Totally different. They're literally meant to reflect the entire range of business activity in the country. Okay? But in fact, you know, there's a certain number of things that they do, and these patterns exist in all of these businesses. And I won't, again, go into the details, but what I want to point out is that if we get good at the pattern, it can apply to any business or any department in a business or any job function in a business. So when we start thinking about what is our business or what's our job function, that's one way to look at it. But if we start with the pattern and get good at that, then we're getting outside the box, because suddenly we can apply that pattern to almost anything. So that's the thought process here. This is an actual example. This comes from real work that we did. Some of you guys in the room were involved in this. This is due diligence for a private equity firm. Okay, and we mapped out their whole due diligence process as it would be reflected in our system. And then we had another client that was a public relations event management business. And we took the process of doing due diligence for a, you know, $100+ million acquisition and compared it to the process for running an event. Okay? And it was like almost exactly the same. In fact, and I did this myself personally, so this is not this kind of apocryphal story. This is actual really happened this way is I just changed certain words. And then we presented the same thing, and each group was like, that's what we were talking about, right? So where are the common patterns that we can identify in our work, and how can we leverage that commonality? Okay, that's a thought question to keep in mind.